Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, checking out a fun and interesting episode for you guys this evening because we're going to be talking about some lost arcade games that no matter what you try to do, you cannot play them today. If you know me and you know the channel, you know I love hunting down rare arcade releases, dumping them and sharing them with everyone, and I love talking about some of the rare arcade games out there. But there's an entire classification of arcade game that is so incredibly rare, absolutely nobody can play it today, and that's because it might in fact be lost. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel something kind of wants to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. What you're looking at right now is the PlayStation 1 footage of Speed King, also known as Road Rage. It's basically something like Wipeout made for Konami, and it was an arcade cabinet that was absolutely massive. This thing was a simulation ride. You would get inside of it and basically have the entire cabinet move while you controlled your vehicle in the game. And it's basically all of these amusement cabinets that seem to be some of the rarest because they definitely broke down a ton, and it's not like Konami made a metric crap ton of them back in the day either. And while you can still experience the game on PlayStation 1, the actual arcade dump has never been found. There's no cabinets out there that I am aware of. Unfortunately, this is basically lost media at this point in time, and having a Konami game from the 90s that's a racing game, in fact, being lost is absolutely a bummer. That right there is a ZR107 motherboard, and that is what the game runs on. And unfortunately, that one ROM set has never been found. We have Winding Heat, we have Midnight Run. I have both of those games in my collection. They've been dumped for a very long time by other people and work in MAME incredibly well, which means that if we could find the ROMs for Speed King or Road Rage, it would be able to be strung together in MAME relatively quickly because the emulation is on point. So much so that recently in MAME 0.274, with that update, all of the analog controls came in and started working much better. And it's really interesting when you have a board with 3 games on it, 2 of the 3 you can play today, whether you have real hardware, which isn't the hardest to find, or whether you emulate it, and one game is just completely and absolutely missing. But it does come down to the fact that the cabinet is that giant amusement cabinet, so even though if we had the ROMs we could socket them into this PCB right here, I'm sure there was a lot of additional hardware that ran everything else in the cab. And in just a moment I'll show you the only photograph of the cabinet I can find that seems to be on the internet. That's how incredibly rare this thing was back in the day, and that's why today it's probably completely lost, which is absolutely a disappointment, because at least the PlayStation 1 version of the game is fun, but having the better graphics on the ZR107 and having Speed King preserved for all time would be absolutely something amazing. I don't expect anyone to know where any of these cabinets are, but if you've ever seen a Speed King cabinet before, leave me a comment down below because I feel like usually one person has seen it. Now if we take a look at the killer list of video games, or KLOV, there is a listing for Speed King, and it even has a photograph of the cabinet, the only photograph I could find on the internet, and that giant plastic shell on top there, your body would go in that and it would move left, right, up and down and pivot based upon the movement of the vehicle, and that's probably why this game is just completely lost, because let me tell you, those cabinets took an absolute beating. They had a metric crap ton of moving parts, and they would break semi-regularly, and considering how expensive they were to produce and not many arcade operators would actually buy them, that's how you end up with probably all of these cabinets in the recycling bin a long time ago with all the associated game ROMs on them. So at this point in time, Speed King, the arcade version, 100% a lost arcade game. Now moving into the genre of skiing and amusement cabinets, if you watch the channel you know I worked in skiing for a long time. It is one of my favorite things to do, and I always love these cabinets. And of course we have games from Sega and Namco that feature it, but did you know that Konami was also working on a game and even had it at AOU 1998, an arcade trade show called Skiers High. There were 4 cabinets here in this magazine from France that was scanned and uploaded to the Museum of Video Games, and if you take a look at the flyer, which you can buy weirdly, a lot of times you can buy the flyer for games you just cannot find, it looks like a ton of fun and definitely something that I would want to check out. But the question is, where did it go? Why did it not make it anywhere? Well, the reality is they didn't actually end up producing the cabinets for sale. Either location testings failed or Konami just didn't feel comfortable enough taking the risk producing the cabinets. There was only ever 4 made. They showed up at that trade show. They were playable by people on the floor, and then they never appeared again. If we take a look at the magazine here, they also showed off other games from Konami, including Battle Trist on the 3DO M2, and if you know me in the channel, you know I love some 3DO M2. So the question is, what did Skiers High even run on? Was it 3DO M2 hardware? Was it another arcade board from that same era? Because Konami loved to overlap their arcade hardware. At the same time they had NWKTR on the arcade floors, they had the 3DO M2 board, they also had the Konami Hornet as well. They had 3 different platforms they could produce games on, so the reality is if you're even looking for this game, you're not even sure exactly what platform you should be looking at it on, because no one seems to know what this actually runs on. It could be GTI Club class hardware, it could be the M2, it could be the Hornet, it could be the NWKTR, it could basically be anything including a PCB from Konami we've never actually seen before, because unlike every other arcade manufacturer, Konami could not help themselves but produce new boards they would put 1-2 games on and then completely abandon after the fact. So it really is that interesting situation. It could have been on NWKTR, something like Thrill Drive runs there. It's hard to say from these screenshots on the flyer graphically what level it's at, because a lot of times they put up screenshots that didn't really represent exactly how good or bad the game looked in motion, so we really don't know. But on the 3DO M2 side of things, there is an edge that inputs analog controls that's never been used on the board, and it's fun just kind of going through all of these old documents as well from 1998. They talk about Psychic Force 2012, a board that definitely is quite rare, but still a game that you can find today, and that really is one of those things. There were so many unique pieces of hardware in the late 90s as far as 3D is concerned. You're never quite sure what was running on what and why a game would be lost. It's one of those things. There were 4 cabinets produced here, and if you take a look, there's an additional piece of art for the marquee on top of the actual cabinet, and in the flyers for North America, you're going to see that it still has all of the Japanese text on the body of the cabinet, but it loses that one piece of art. So the odds are there was only ever 4 produced. They didn't actually get made. They probably went back to Konami headquarters and were scrapped for other parts. So unfortunately, Skier's High, also a game I don't think you're ever going to find. But honestly, sometimes just talking about these things manifests them, so hopefully we do get lucky. Now, sticking with the Konami theme, but moving into the future, this is the I/O board as well as the security dongle for Crazy Streets Thrill Drive 4. And if you know me and you know the channel, you know I absolutely love the franchise. I have the original 3 games on original hardware, and Thrill Drive and Thrill Drive 3 can be emulated. Thrill Drive 2 is still a little touchy on the Konami Viper, but there is a 4th game out there somewhere. We know it was location tested in the US, in Europe, and Japan. This footage is from Taryn Noxon here, and this was in the Midwest, and Konami had all of the distribution in the Midwest, probably because it was easy to get cabinets to the left and right hand side of them, the West Coast and the East Coast respectively, so we know it at least made it to North America as location testing, and some of those cabinets did end up getting sold to arcades because they already made them, so they may as well try to recoup a little bit of their development cost and manufacturing costs on the cabinets. I don't know if Thrill Drive 4 is a good game or not. It seems to definitely change up a lot of the mechanics, but it is a game that if you wanted to go out and buy it today, if you wanted to go out and play it today, it is just an absolute impossibility. I've never played the game before, and that's all I've ever wanted to do is play this thing. I have saved searches everywhere trying to find a board for it, so if I can find the hard drive, I can dump it and share it with everyone, and I have that dongle to be able to actually use the security on it as well. It is just a PC in a box with a hard drive, an I/O board, and the security key, so really it would probably run on any modern PC. Might need a little modification, but people over on my Discord help me with that all the time. We just need to find the actual hard drive game files so we can marry it together with that security key and make it playable for everyone. But the reality is that may never happen. At this point in time, Crazy Streets Thrill Drive 4 is 100% a lost game, but if you do know where there is a cabinet for this, please leave me a comment down below. I've got the key, I just need the lock, and the lock in this instance is the hard drive, so if it's anywhere on Earth that you can point me to, I'll do everything I can to try to get in there and get a hard drive dump. Maybe I'll use somebody locally, maybe I'll hop on a plane, you never know, but I want to have all 4 Thrill Drive games preserved for everyone, and the fact that there is a 4th game out there that you can't play absolutely drives me nuts, and it is one of those titles I'm constantly looking for, but at this point in time would still be lost media. Now, the 4th and last game in this video, and if you like it, leave me a comment down below because there are other lost arcade games I could talk about, is going to be Cooper's 9. This was a light gun shooter made by GameWax and distributed by Konami in some regions, but it's basically an exceedingly rare arcade cabinet, and I don't know of a single one on arcade floors right now. Now, interestingly, this has the opposite problem of Thrill Drive 4. I have this game's hard drive dump sitting on my computer right now, ready to play. It's been available for a while. It was sent to me quietly some years ago, and then it ended up getting proliferated across the internet. The problem is absolutely nobody has a security key. This game comes in one gigantic bin file, and that security key is basically going to allow it to be uncompressed and run as a PC executable. But without that key, the hard drive is nothing more than a black box that we can't access whatsoever, which means that even though Cooper's 9 has been aired air quotes preserved, it is not playable. You cannot experience it. Now this is one that I do feel like there's probably still a couple arcade cabinets out in the wild for, so if you've ever seen it even recently, leave me a comment down below. I know someone in pretty much every major country that can help me try to find these things. Sometimes you just have to offer an arcade operator a couple $100 to be able to dump that drive onto a laptop while you're there, but if you know where there is one, do comment, because this is another fun game that I want to experience. An arcade light gun game that I've never played is basically like catnip to me, but at this point in time, considering that there is no security key available and I don't know where there's any arcade cabinets, it's another game that I would consider lost media at this point in time, which is just an absolute bummer. There's a lot of fun arcade games out there that you can play, but there's an equal number of arcade games that seem to be lost, and I do everything I can to find them. Like I said, if you liked the video, let me know and maybe you'll see a part 2. But we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.